this theme tonight is awe-inspiring beauty. What is beauty? Why? Why is beauty important? So, usually, this is our first time without our dear Aidan Kelly. Because our dear Aidan Kelly, many of us know and love him, he left to join a monastery. He is usually our philosopher, our talk giver. And I have some big shoes to fill. So tonight I am attempting for the first time to fill those shoes. Beauty is a topic that I've valued very, very much for a long time as an artist. And this is my first attempt, not my first attempt, this is my attempt, my continued attempt at bringing my intellect to the level of my love for the arts, for beauty. So without further ado, here's my essay on awe-inspiring beauty. There is an intense... Wait. I encourage you to follow along in our program, which is in the part of the link. It's titled Program, and it's a link, because this is a little bit dense, and I tend to ramble a little bit, but I am working on it. So this is your invitation to follow along, in the hopes that it'll help you understand it more deeply and grow in this value. So now, without further ado, I'm seeing all these people come in. This is great. Awe-inspiring beauty. There is an intense fragmentation in the West today, occurring in different levels of human experience. We see the fragmentation of individuals with the rise of mental illness and suicide cases. We also see the fragmentation of families with the rise of divorce and the declining marriage and birth rate. Finally, we see the fragmentation of the broader social and political world with the rise of identity politics, beneath which are ever unfolding layers of malevolence. One of the primary causes of this fragmentation in our lives is relativism, the philosophy which claims that each of us creates our own truth and our own criteria for what is good, in such a way that we believe that another human being has no right to tell us what is true or what we should or should not do. It is a philosophy that prohibits nothing except prohibition. Anything goes, as long as you individually feel it is right for you. When this is held as a value structure, it necessarily leads to isolation of individuals, because it removes the possibility of a shared truth and a transcendent good that unites us all. Instead, there is nothing that unites us all. We are fragmented individuals acting as gods of our own worlds, gods who are at war with one another in order to maintain our own little worlds. In building the Tower of Babel that is self-made truth, we are cast into confusion and are incapable of communicating with and relating to one another. There are three primary ways this relativism manifests. The first way is in the claim that truth is relative. Is this claim true? Can the claim that truth is relative be true? Next time you hear someone claim that truth is relative, ask them, if truth is relative, then is the truth that truth is relative absolute? Or is that relative also? If it's absolute, then is truth really relative? The only way to answer this question honestly is to concede that there are indeed rock-bottom truths about reality. Though the claim that truth is relative is the silliest manifestation of relativism, it is nonetheless pervasive and dangerous because it annihilates the possibility of a shared truth, and therefore the ability for us to dialogue with each other. It is impossible to dialogue with someone who thinks this. They just shut it down every time. The second way this relativism manifests is in the claim that goodness is relative. That your morality is yours to be kept to yourself, and mine is mine to be untrammeled by others. The best that can be said about this is that we all have different needs. Some foods might resonate with your psychological and physiological constitution differently from mine, and vice versa. A vegetarian diet might suit you, while a carnivore diet might suit me, and or Thomas. Similarly, a given vocation and state in life might bring out the best in you, while a different one might bring out the best in me. But this doesn't change the fact that some things are simply good and others simply evil. There are good things, and within the possibility of what is good, some of them apply to me and others don't, while certain goods apply to you and others don't. In the words of Father Gregory Pine, there is an objective hierarchy of goods and a subjective appropriation of those goods. In the question of whether goodness is relative, it is worth observing that humans have certain irrefutable needs: food, water, shelter, physical affection, and verbal communication. Without these things, we die very, very quickly. Humans, therefore, have a list of things that are objectively commensurate with our well-being by virtue of our being human. And with that comes a list of things that are objectively detrimental to our well-being: starvation, thirst, exposure to the elements, violence, abuse, and neglect. Someone who inflicts these things with the intent to cause a detriment to our well-being is by definition then an immoral agent, or simply put, unquestionably evil. The claim that goodness is relative is therefore the most immediately dangerous manifestation of relativism. The third manifestation of relativism is in the claim that beauty is relative. Beauty is relative. This is one we are all too familiar with. So familiar that we who oppose relativism might even believe it ourselves. We have all heard repeatedly that beauty is in the eye of the beholder. And this claim seems to make sense, given the fact that if you line up 10 people and have them all listen to the same song, they're going to have varying reactions. Some might be very moved, some might be utterly befuddled, and others might be excited, bored, or annoyed. The claim that beauty is relative is therefore the most innocuous and easily accepted, and therefore arguably the most dangerous in the long run. To make sense of all this, we have to understand what beauty is exactly. To understand beauty, we must first understand human perception, which operates not within the world of matter, but within the world of what matters. Indeed, we cannot do or say anything, even pick up a pencil, without seeing the matter within a context of what matters, within a hierarchy of value, within a landscape of meaning. When we perceive an object made out of matter, our framework of value instantaneously sees not its elemental building blocks, but its place within the hierarchy of values we hold. When I'm not holding a microphone right now. When I sit on this table, I don't say, oh look, a conglomeration of whatever elements make up wood. All that information goes completely unnoticed by me. And instead I see a tool for a specific purpose. In this case, to sit on. Similarly, when you walked into this living room and looked at the chair or the spot on the floor, you're now sitting on, or the wall that you're leaning against, you didn't see its elemental building blocks. You saw a place to position yourself, a tool for a specific purpose. Rather than getting bogged down by the overwhelming number of details in the material world, which can go infinitely, our minds organize the information presented by the material world and fit it into our framework of what matters, so that we can act in a way that we deem meaningful. Our minds are therefore always trying to figure out how to relate to our environment by trying to figure out where things belong in our hierarchy of values. Material entities can be placed in one of two categories within our hierarchy of values. Those things with which to have an I-it relationship, and those persons with whom to have an I-thou relationship. If I were married, and I said to my wife, I love you because I understand you exhaustively, inside and out, and you are a useful means to my end, I would be wrongly categorizing her as an object with which to have an I-it relationship, and demeaning her as a tool to use for a specific purpose, just like your chair or my table. Conversely, if I were to spend an inordinate amount of time with my cast iron skillet in the hopes of engaging in reciprocal knowing and loving with it, I ought to be taken to a psych ward, because I would be treating a mere object as a person with which to share an I-thou relationship. It is clear then that not only do we perceive mere matter, nor a mere hierarchy of what matters, but we perceive categories of what matters. What matters as tools for use, and what matters as persons for reciprocal knowing and loving. But even that is not the extent of our perceptual abilities. We are capable, through trial and error and grace across time, of organizing and synthesizing all things, all matter, within both categories of what matters, into a harmony that is a meaningful life. This is where we begin to properly understand beauty. The ancient Greeks used a philosophical term for beauty, which was kalos, which in turn is where we get our verb to call. The reason for this etymological relationship between beauty and calling is seen in how the Greeks understood beauty. That beauty is a reality that calls us beyond ourselves and into another, into something more than what we are. This verb to call implies that beauty is not a reality that just is, but a reality that acts in relation to us. It calls us the way a person calls us. When we answer this call, attend to it, and abide by it, we find ourselves involved in something much greater than ourselves in a way that is detailed, intricate, thorough, and perfect. The intelligibility of the call of beauty and the complexity and perfection of its fruits suggest a personal and intelligent nature behind its actions. The secular Greek and religious Judeo-Christian traditions both have it that it is not an I-it relationship, but an I-thou relationship between us and beauty. For how could this reality which calls us into itself and is greater than ourselves not have a personal nature, or something greater than a personal nature, when we ourselves have a personal nature, and it is greater than us? This indeed is what St. Augustine asserts when he claims that, quote, God is beauty, ever ancient, ever new, end quote. That beauty is he who calls. That God himself is beauty. And therefore beauty is itself, not just a person, but a trinity of persons. Persons who are eternally calling us further up and further in. Calling us further up and further in. In the words of C.S. Lewis, The Last Battle. Our 21st century Western secular culture, sees beauty differently. But it sees beauty differently because it perceives reality differently. It insists that reality consists only of matter, and that nothing matters. This idea of kalos is therefore absurd to our culture, because to it there is only matter, and nothing beyond the matter that calls us. No meaningful framework within which matter belongs. Beauty is then meaningless, relative, and equated with what we individually judge as pleasurable. Our culture says that the song is beautiful to you if you find it pleasurable to listen to, and the same song is not beautiful to Sally if she doesn't find it pleasurable to listen to. The goal in making art for our culture has become to create an experience that optimizes accessibility and pleasure, or pleasure and therefore accessibility. Art has therefore become increasingly pornographic, unchallenging, one-dimensional, smooth, flat, and therefore meaningless. In contrast, back in the 60s, for example, cars were angular, colorful, and striking. They demanded a judgment to be loved or hated, so that no one can just shrug it off. Now they're mostly all in the gray color scale and are smooth, visually unchallenging. Just look at the QX60, this is my loaner car. My car's in service and I am loaner car. Modern architecture, too, is easily digestible in its one-dimensionality. Compare, for example, any modern Protestant church down the street, started by Pastor Gabe, with this. Compare that with the Sistine Chapel. Or compare any government building within the past 10 years from any government building built back in the late 1700s. They look like churches. Compare Sam Smith and Kim Petras' hit TikTok single, Unholy, with Thomas Tallis' 40-part motet, Spem and Allium. Compare more than anything the immediate gratification offered by pornography, fornication, and adultery with the richness and fulfillment offered by a devout marriage. In all these comparisons, the first example shows a great smoothness, ease of consuming, lack of depth and dimensionality, and therefore meaninglessness. While the second example shows symmetry, depth, and brightness that is striking. It is true that beauty is often pleasurable. When I look into a starry night out in the desert with no light pollution, I encounter something that is calling me outside of myself, kalos, to contemplate the infinity and immensity of reality, and the unique brightness and goodness of each individual part, including myself, and how that all is brought into a whole. There is great pleasure in encountering this beauty, but it is also terrifying to encounter something that draws you so violently outside yourself. If you are a narcissistic egomaniac who runs his affairs at the expense of others and are suddenly confronted with the face of Almighty God, you will not come out of your own little world you've enslaved yourself to without a great deal of terror and pain. St. Paul. Hence, hence, hell is more accurately described. It worked out well for me. Hence, hell is more accurately described by C.S. Lewis as a place whose doors are locked from the inside, rather than the outside, in order to keep the terror of ultimate goodness, truth, and beauty away from the deceptive comfort and ease of self. Hence also the etymological overlap between the words terrific and terrifying. Think about that. Terrific. Terrifying. Both imply a confrontation with something far greater than oneself, though the former suggests a perception of the catalyst as a good to be approached, while the latter suggests a perception of the catalyst as a threat to be avoided. Beauty, therefore, is not limited to the pleasure that it gives us, but it is a reality that calls us outside ourselves, which can cause a variety of emotional responses, including pleasure, relief, catharsis, or apathy, fear, shame, and pain, depending on our openness to it and how well trained we are at perceiving it. This brings us to the essence of what beauty is. St. Thomas Aquinas, in his treatise on the virtue of honesty, equates beauty with honesty. Beauty and honesty. And lists two essential components to beauty: symmetry and clarity. For example, the human body is said to be beautiful when it is symmetrical between its left and right sides, and has a clarity of color not obscured by illness or injury. The human body is not said to be beautiful when the left side of the face is swollen twice the right side's size, or when the skin is infected with jaundice. This is also why people are insecure of their attractiveness when they are red with acne, while a physical attribute often associated with attractiveness is clear skin. Clarity is one of the essential parts of beauty. To expand this explanation beyond the human body, a beautiful human person is one whose actions are symmetrical with who one is. That is, his actions reveal who he is honestly, and he therefore acts in alignment with what is true and good, because he is true and good, being a divine idea incarnate, to quote Dietrich von Hildebrand. Such people, regardless of their physical attributes, are beautiful people. This doesn't mean we want to consume them sexually, as that would, in isolation, be seeing them in an I-it relationship and not an I-thou relationship. It means the light that they are is not hidden underneath a bushel basket, but shines goodness and truth unto the world. To expand this example even further, beyond the human individual, a human community, be it a marriage, religious order, school, business, country, or the world, is said to be beautiful. Beautiful when its different individuals relate to each other well by being symmetrically yoked to one another, being equally willing to live and sacrifice for each other, and when they are of the same mind through the clarity of communication. Again, symmetry and clarity. In all these cases, beauty essentially consists of, quote, the concordance of clarity and due proportionality. Due proportionality, symmetry. Revealing the true and good nature of what something or who someone is. One day, Cardinal Ratzinger was sitting in a concert hall with a Lutheran bishop, listening to a Bach performance. He stated later on, quote, when the last note of the great Thomas Cantor cantatas triumphantly faded away, we looked at each other spontaneously, and right then we said, anyone who has heard this knows that the faith is true. This is the way of beauty, the via pulchritundinis. Beauty can be the most effective means to bring man to Jesus Christ. End quote. This true objective beauty we're speaking of here is succinctly defined by St. Pope John Paul II in his letter to artists. Quote, beauty is the visible form of the good. Beauty is the visible form of the good. Just as the good is the metaphysical condition of beauty. End quote. The lack of beauty is therefore the lack of the good. And where there is beauty, we experience the good. We experience the good. It's not just abstract. We experience the good with beauty. Therefore, refining your aesthetic sense through reading books, watching movies, decorating your house, telling stories, and playing and listening to music are no trivial pastimes. Nor is becoming beautiful yourself necessarily a vanity, though it can become that. On the contrary, these things must be prioritized properly, as beauty ultimately brings us to others and to God, and plays an essential role in our salvation. When we encounter something that is beautiful, according to this objective standard, we are met face to face with transcendent goodness and truth through a sensory experience that cannot be argued with or explained away. Instead, it takes us over, draws us in, and calls us, kalos, to be part of something greater than ourselves. When men encounter a beautiful woman, her very being calls us to be greater. And we see her as either terrific or terrifying. A beautiful movie or novel calls us to live a more noble life, which is either a terrific or terrifying experience, or both. It's probably both. A beautiful song calls us to be more harmonious in our many parts within ourselves and with those around us. And a beautiful church invites us in on its own. On its own, a beautiful church invites us in and calls us to be part of the ancient traditions and foundational truths that ultimately frees us from the throes of death, because it is impossible for them to be held by it. These are terrific experiences, as they offer so much promise. And they are also terrifying, because they require us to change, to battle the world, to battle the flesh, to battle the devil, in order to attain the good we desire and are called to. These encounters with beauty keep life engaging, meaningful, and moving forward in truth and goodness. Consider what happens when we lose beauty. We lose the grounded sensory experience of transcendent truth and goodness. When we see beauty as being in the eye of the beholder, we limit beauty to the pleasure that it gives us individually. And we remove our experience from our experience the uniting agent that connects all humans, all objects, and all times to one another, and to one greater whole. We lose it. We lose it. It's gone. Our lives become fragmented and meaningless. Our families fall apart. Our society slips into worshiping idols like money and sexual pleasure at the expense of others. If you've seen the movie The Sound of Freedom, starring Jim Caviezel, or you've heard the stories of those who have escaped situations like that which the movie depicts, you've caught a peek of the depths of hell society descends into, and a large contributing factor is the loss of grounded sensory experiences of what is true and good, i.e. the loss of beauty. And it's happening now. You read it in the Bible, and it's like, oh, that would never happen. And then you watch The Sound of Freedom, and you're like, that's happening right now. Beauty is not in the eye of the beholder. Beauty is a healing agent that orders our souls, orders our relationships, and orders our society. And it brings novelty to all these things. We lose it at our peril. When beauty is imbued in the way we speak, we communicate well and are more united. When it is imbued in how we dress and present ourselves, it raises the standard of how we treat each other, especially in romantic contexts. From a disposition of use to a disposition of reverence, of the dignity of the other, and of oneself. When it is imbued in our architecture, it raises our gaze forward and upward, rather than inward and down. When it is imbued in our movies and literature, we internalize the trajectory of a beautiful character transformation. I like that. I'm going to say it again. When it is imbued in our movies and literature, we internalize the trajectory of a beautiful character transformation. We internalize that. When it is imbued in our music, our emotions are woken up and brought to the surface in our thoughts, liberating us to think, speak, and act honestly When awe-inspiring beauty is prioritized and striven for, our fragmented, broken lives are sewn together into an experientially meaningful whole. This is what Jesus prays for in the Garden of Gethsemane. Quote, I pray that they may all be one, as you, Father, are in me and I in you, that they also may be in us, that the world may believe that you sent me. And I have given them the glory you gave me, so that they may be one, as we are one, I and them and you and me, that they may be brought to perfection as one, that the world may know that you sent me, and that you loved them, even as you loved me. End quote. John 17, 20-22. It has been rightly said by John Vervaeke, then, that, quote, beauty is the form of love. Beauty is the form of love. End quote. Because the end of love is unity. Oneness between two that are distinct. And beauty is the appearance of this love and unity. It's the appearance of the good. This multiplicity made into unity, which the Greeks called metaxou, reflects the very nature of God. Multiplicity into unity. Three persons in one nature. And culminates in the whole that we make in our integrity within ourselves, being united to each other, being united to Him. If beauty is the form of love, and the love of God is our salvation, then beauty is the form of our salvation. Beauty is the form of our salvation. In the words of Dostoevsky, in his great book, The Idiot, which I still haven't read, beauty will save the world. Beauty will save the world. Woo!